The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also
I
saying
wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota. Okay?
What is the practical effect on the Somali community when the president says things like that?
I mean, it creates fear. And there is a possible danger that a lot of the people who follow the president have exhibited violence in many cases, especially in my case, whenever he has said something about me that is derogatory or says I'm a threat to the country. I have gotten death threats. There's so many people that have been incarcerated over the years that have been encouraged by the president's words. And so there is fear for Somalis, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, that some of these people might attack and harm them. We know that Somalis, over 90% of them are citizens of this country, majority of them having born in the United States.
Federal prosecutors say 59 people have been investigated in these schemes so far. Americans at large stole tens of billions of forms of aid during the pandemic all over the country. Minnesota's fraud scandal stands out, according to federal auditors. What are you hearing from investigators right now?
Well, I've been following the cases closely as they've gone through the courts, and we know that there are more indictments possibly coming. I think that number might go up to 73 is what I'm hearing.
Okay. Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created. I mean, I'm not shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he is trying to scapegoat and deflect from the actual failures that he has himself. We know that this administration has not fulfilled majority of the promises that they've made, whether it is bringing costs down, whether it is the tariffs that are decimating businesses in the United States, whether it is the possible war crimes that his defense secretary is committing. And so to me, it is important for us, one, to remind folks that we are Americans. We're not going anywhere, and we will continue to be in this country.
State Senator Glenn Gruenhagen coming to you from the Minnesota Capitol with another critical issue. Today, I'd like to talk about all the fraud that is going on in state government and the consequences of that. U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson here in the state of Minnesota has said that the known fraud has now reached about $2 billion in the state of Minnesota over the last several years. Many people believe it's much higher than that, but that's what's actually known. I can give you a kind of a breakdown of a little bit of it. You got everybody's probably heard of Feeding Our Future, $250 million. We got the Child Care Assistance Program, which was $100 million. Medicaid, there's been a tremendous amount of fraud. Autism, there's certain areas that are under investigation. Of course, you have the housing issue also. It seems like Minnesota is one of the worst fraud-infested states in all the country. And we really need to get to the bottom of this. The second thing I'd like to bring out is that if we hadn't had that fraud, let's say $2 billion, we could have used that money for other good things. Like, for instance, we could buy and purchase security for our public and non-public schools, which desperately need that security. We also could have done some roads and bridges. We could have cut taxes. There's a host of things that we could have done. A number of my constituents actually think that Governor Walz is buying votes here in the state of Minnesota with this fraud. Now, that can't be proven, but, it does look interesting that how much fraud we have and how little has been done to prevent it by Governor Walz's administration. We did have a bill in the Senate last session. It was bipartisan. It passed with a major majority in the Senate of the Office Inspector General that would have had complete oversight of all programs in the state of Minnesota. The word was that Governor Walz strongly opposed this. When it went to the House, it was defeated. So again, it seems like putting a stop to some of this fraud is on the back burner for the Walz administration.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm the acting United States Attorney for the District of Minnesota. We're here to announce the first round of indictments in the ongoing investigation of fraud in the Housing Stabilization Services State Medicaid program. The HSS program is riddled with fraud. The story has become all too familiar. Minnesota started the Housing Stabilization Services program in 2020. We were the first state in the nation to make this Medicaid benefit available. At the time, the program was estimated to cost approximately $2.6 million a year, but it quickly exploded. It grew to more than $100 million a year in Medicaid billing within just a few years. Hundreds of companies enrolled in the program and began claiming to provide housing stabilization services to thousands of clients throughout the state of Minnesota. Many of these companies operated out of dilapidated storefronts or rundown office buildings that were full of other fraudulent healthcare companies, such as the Griggs Midway building in St. Paul. Rather than being general healthcare or social services providers, many of these companies were devoted exclusively to billing the Housing Stabilization Program. Today we are charging 8 defendants for their role in this fraud scheme. 4 defendants, Mokhtar Hassan Aden, Mustafa Ali, Khalid Daib, and Abdi Fattah Mohammed, are charged for their role in carrying out a fraud in a company called Brilliant Minds Services, LLC, which is a housing stabilization services company run out of the Griggs Midway building in St. Paul. Brilliant Minds and its owners received more than $2 million in Medicaid billings based on their fraudulent claims to be providing housing stabilization services. Defendants Christopher and Emmanuel Falade are being charged for their role in operating another fraudulent housing stabilization company called Falade Care. Together, they received more than $2 million in Medicaid billing, purportedly for providing housing stabilization services. 2 additional defendants are being charged by information today. Assad Ahmed Adaw, the owner of Leo Human Services, is being charged for his role in the scheme. His company received more than $2.7 million in housing stabilization services payments. His brother, Anwar Ahmed Adaw, the owner of Liberty Plus LLC, is also being charged here by information. He and his company received more than $1 million in Medicaid payments for fraudulent housing stabilization services claims. All of these defendants and the others that we are investigating followed a similar scheme. They identified vulnerable individuals, Medicaid eligible individuals, many of whom were being released from drug or alcohol rehab facilities. They signed them up to receive housing stabilization services to help them, purportedly to help them find stable housing. And then they billed them for services that they did not, or they billed Medicaid for services they did not actually provide. Despite the hundreds of millions of dollars in payments that have gone out from the state of Minnesota to housing stabilization services companies. Most of these individuals did not receive the stable housing they so desperately needed. The money was just simply stolen. Now, this is just the first round of indictments in this case. Unlike in similar cases, such as Feeding Our Future, we're going to charge this case in waves as we develop the evidence for individual defendants and companies. The plan is to charge groups of defendants and companies as their cases are ready for indictment. This investigation is ongoing, and it's being conducted by agents from the FBI, Health and Human Services, OIG, and the IRS, along with the assistance of many other law enforcement agencies, including the Postal Inspection Service and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. As I said, the investigation is ongoing, and we expect additional charges to be brought in the coming weeks and months. Now, before I open it up for questions, let me just say this. As many of you know, Minnesota is drowning in fraud. Many of the owners of housing stabilization services companies had one or more other companies through which they build other Medicaid programs, such as the EIDBI autism program, the ARMS, or the Adult Rehabilitative Mental Health Services program, the ICS Integrated Community Support Program, the Community Access for Disability Inclusion, or CADI program, PCA services, and other Medicaid waivered services. The level of fraud in these programs is staggering. Unfortunately, our system of trust but verify no longer works. These programs have been abused over and over to the point where the fraud has overtaken the legitimate services. I've been prosecuting these cases for years, and I've literally run out of ways to express what is happening in our state and in our state programs, and to explain the coming iceberg I see as we reckon with the fraud. Now, we can and will prosecute many of these individuals, as we have been, but we cannot prosecute our way out of this problem. We must do more at the front end to stop the outflow of money. Everyone needs to pick up a shovel. The agents and prosecutors in this room have been doing extraordinary work to investigate and prosecute these cases. The reporters in this room have been asking the right questions and doing their own investigative reporting to identify fraudulent companies and schemes. And if there's a hopeful note, the state and its politicians are starting to take notice about the problem. It's time for everyone to speak up and stand up to confront the problem in the state before it is too late.
I'm sure many of you are aware of the billions of dollars of fraud that is happening at the state of Minnesota. Now, over 450 DHS, Department of Human Services employees have come forward and accused Governor Walz of, number one, being notified of this fraud, number two, doing nothing, and actually persecuting or imposing negative consequences on the employees who've gone forward to report this. I want to thank federal investigators for bringing this up. For some reason, the media in the state of Minnesota has done little to expose this. And now we have the federal feds involved, and they're actually exposing the amount of fraud. It's billions of dollars, not just millions. The other thing, just heard a news report that the federal government is going to freeze up to $30 million of transportation funding if the Walz administration does not withdraw illegals' driver's license that were issued under the state of Minnesota and passed by Democrats. So again, the Walz administration laws, in defiance of federal law, is actually going to cost Minnesota, has the potential to cost Minnesota millions of dollars, not only in this area of transportation, but under the Green New Scam, again, teaching children the transgender ideology down to the elementary level and a host of others. We get $22.9 billion a year from the federal government here to the state of Minnesota. And Governor Walz, along with Keith Ellison and a number of other agency heads, are endangering that by not complying with federal law and presidential executive orders. And they don't care. And then they file lawsuits costing Minnesota taxpayers millions of dollars. So please, please pay attention. contact your legislator, whether Democrat or Republican. We need to change this and bring accountability to the state of Minnesota, and Governor Walz needs to be held accountable. You know, any CEO of any major corporation who even had 5% of this fraud in their corporation, they would resign and probably be put in prison for a number of years. And here yet Governor Walz, what does he do? Rather than accepting responsibility, he says, well, we put people in jail. He didn't put people in jail. It was the feds that did. Again, it seems like he just continually exaggerates, lies, and is deceitful in his comments. Please, please, let's hold Governor Walz and the Democrats accountable for what they've actually done.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.